All right, Juwan, thanks so much for jumping on the pod today. I was just saying before we started, have been seeing your social media content kind of all over my feed, like honestly, probably like the last month or so. We're going to touch on some of that, but I immediately knew I was like, okay, follow. And then I kept, seeing everything. I'm like, I've got to reach out and connect with him because, yeah, your stuff and your dedication is second to none. It already seems like. So we're super excited to connect with you and just kind of get a sense of where you're at. So we were just talking off air. Can you just discuss where you are at right now, kind of where you are in terms of the coaching and then bouncing between leagues and stuff a little bit now?
So currently I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba. So I just finished up my first season as an assistant coach with the Winnipeg Sea Bears. Head coach is Mike Taylor. I did this since May until like early August when we just lost in the playoffs. Had a great opportunity to come to Canada and be an assistant coach. I just jumped on it. It was completely right after the G League season finished
No
up.
rest in between, huh?
Yeah,
Nothing
no
in
rest in
between. Oh my
between.
God.
No rest in
Yeah.
between. So I just jumped on another opportunity to coach. Great
Yeah.
experience. People have been great, and I just loved it over these last 3 months.
No, that's awesome. What are some of the initial differences, I guess, just being in the first year in Winnipeg, the differences between G League maybe right away that you noticed from this league that's I think you mentioned it was in its fifth year starting up. What are some of the big things that stood out right away?
Difference right away. That's a great question. Great
Maybe
question.
aside from, I don't
Great
know, is it like
question.
talent, resources, anything that you can speak to, obviously?
Okay, obviously the resources, of course,
Yeah.
because in the G League you have obviously the NBA team and the NBA support. So the resources and things of that nature are better. The talent is there. I think the CBL has great talent. I think the CBL is top heavy for sure. Teams that have the best imports, then have some really good Canadians would be like a really good team. But the resources is definitely the biggest difference in the leagues.
That's really cool that you're getting to kind of jump between both. And in terms of your role on staff, so you're a full-time assistant now with in Winnipeg, and then in the G League, you were doing a lot of player development. But is it all kind of morphed in one? Like, what does a day in the life look like for you right now in Winnipeg? And then we'll obviously jump to the main topic is a lot of that G League stuff.
So right now, for me, my niche is obviously player development. So my title is assistant coach, but my main responsibility is player development. But Winnipeg was unique because Coach Mike gave me an opportunity to grow my voice as an offensive coach and also
Okay.
have an input on defense as well. So Coach Mike, whole selling point to me was to get me to come to Winnipeg to show that I could be more than a player development coach. Right. So player development was my huge like responsibility. But in game and like in game preparation and post game stuff, I talk mostly about our offense. So I had an opportunity just to grow my voice as a coach. So it was another great opportunity.
Yeah, that's exciting too, though. Like now you're being able to start taking those, maybe small group drills that I've seen you post a bunch, which we'll jump into, and now really building big offensive concepts for you individually. How big of a challenge has that been from going from maybe more small sided stuff to actually putting in offense, like your coaching voice? Can you speak to some of that? Just being a young coach, and this is kind of one of your first times, probably really kind of being in charge of such a
Mhm.
big role.
For sure, I think it's a challenge starting off early on because you're just trying to be sure of yourself first, and you're just trying to command a team of 10 to 15 like grown adults that have their own opinion on the game. So you just got to come in with energy and command, really study up on your craft and be very knowledgeable. But at the same time, once you connect with players, it helps you get more comfortable in their role. So I think just the player development aspect of it and just spending extra time with them in the gym helped me be more comfortable with the players. So once I got in front of them, and I just trusted the working relationships I've built in the past.
You said energy and command. Looking back now, I guess through the year, and even with the G League in terms of running the player development stuff, are those the two big things that you feel like have helped you gain the most trust? Is being that high energy guy, and then how have you kind of developed command of the room or command of the floor when you're leading a drill? Any tips or advice of kind of how you've grown in that area?
Absolutely. Energy is something I had as a player. So that was something that was a non-negotiable for me always.
Yeah.
Whatever I did, I just brought a lot of energy. I wanted to be a smile and a joy to be around. So I think that's a tangible that I had as a person. Then the command part was just being around high-level teachers and just
Yeah.
watching and learning, and also just being observed by those teachers as well, and just getting those feedbacks and teaching points. It's interesting because that command part for me probably might be off topic, but I worked with Tyler Relph for a year in Dallas,
Yep.
Texas, training.
Yep. I follow him. Yep.
He's
He works with
yeah.
Enrique
So
and a
Tyler,
lot of the
working
high
with Tyler,
level, yeah, well, women's players too. Yeah.
absolutely working with Tyler was a great opportunity. But one thing Tyler did for me personally as a coach, he would put me in front of a lot of people, like
Okay.
randomly. So like kindergartners, fifth graders, like high school kids, it would be a group of 30. He would randomly just say, Juwan, you got this session. And I got like 5 minutes to prepare for it. So
Got it.
like those little moments like right there help me out a ton because it just helps you develop your thoughts and just how to control the entire floor because Tyler does a great job at just controlling the entire gym.
So you kind of just got thrown into the fire a little bit. And then a lot of it is reps too, right? Like I'm sure from
Absolutely.
the first time. So with the Winnipeg team, are you presenting scouts to the team in terms of the offensive side of things as well? Like are you in the film room leading things or more so just on the court?
I'm in the film room leading things as well. So I'm
Yeah.
breaking down film with the team, sending out different coverages and stuff to how we're going to exploit their mismatch, their defense, and talking about things of that nature. So I got a lot of reps post game and pre game on scout reports and post game scouts.
Yeah, and that goes into what you said about knowing your stuff earlier. And that's where I want to touch on. I'm really excited to just kind of hear about your film process, your film study, the amount of plays you put up a day and concepts. But it's not even just the plays, though. What I really like is everyone puts up plays, right? Like,
Right,
okay, here's Horns twist, here's whatever, whatever. But there's no
right,
explanation to it. There's no why
right.
it works. And that's where your content is different. But I've been able to really learn and rewatch. And now I'm
I
seeing, okay,
appreciate that.
this is point one, point two, point three, and these are the actual teaching points that the players have to know, as opposed to just where the one runs, where the five screens. It's way more
Right.
detailed. So, can you talk about your film process? Maybe just touch on like how much film are you watching daily? Because I feel like I'm watching a ton, and I'm like, this guy is crushing it. So it's awesome.
Yeah, like so right now I have more time to
Yeah.
focus on more outside stuff teams. For me, I kind of work in increments. So most times I set like a timer of an hour, hour 30.
Yep.
Like after the G League season this past season, my thing was defense. So I want to become a better defensive coach. So
Okay.
after the season, every day I will put like 3 to 5 increments of an hour, hour 30 dedicated into I'm watching defense. So I start for hour 30, and that just holds me accountable and gives me like a sense of urgency to get the work done. I'll work hour 30. Once that timer ends, I take like a 20, 30 minute break, spend time with my daughter, go outside, watch TV, get on Netflix,
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that. Then I just restart the cycle. So
Got
sometimes
it.
like 3 to 5 hours a day. Then in season with the G League is even more because I'm
I'm sure.
preparing for
Yeah.
games. Yeah, I'm
Right.
preparing for games. Pretty much like 14, 16 hours out of my day is took up with film.
Do you find that obviously during the season it's hard to watch any team besides yourself? So it's almost like a little bit of a relief
All
too when
right.
you out of the season you get to finally watch someone else and learn a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Where I feel like in the season it's so you're just so focused on your team and what you guys got to do to win the next game.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the balance of being able to watch other teams at the same time as being able to obviously make sure that your team's prepped and ready to go too, right?
Right. Absolutely. 100%. And I
Yeah.
still find myself watching other teams. Like if
Yep.
I'm in season and I have some downtime, I still might turn on Synergy and watch EuroLeague, Euro Cup. I might not post it, but I have them saved in my archive and just use them when I can or just watch them and learn it.
No doubt. So when you are going into, let's say, your couple hour sessions a day, like you said, you've got to focus. So it's going to be defense one day, or is it like kind of a theme for a week or a month, or you're going to go all defense? And is that kind of the focus of you're going to pull up, all right, let me look at the top ranked teams in the EuroLeague, defensive field goal percentage. Now I'm going to pull up three of those teams and consistently watch those, or do you kind of jump around and more free flow it?
Most times it's a theme. So I
Okay.
started the theme technique of how I watch film during was it the 2020 or 2021 NCAA tournament.
Okay.
So I was randomly just sitting on my couch and I think I saw a 2 foot finish post on Twitter. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna just break down every 2 foot finish that happened in an entire tournament.
Yep.
And I had great success because it helped me retain information. And I just learned different things. So now I like to follow the theme. So currently on Twitter, my theme is like ATOs. So I've just been going down the EuroLeague and all the other leagues internationally and just watching like 5 to 10 teams. Like what are their favorite
Got it.
ATOs? Like what are they doing to get certain players the ball? like how they move on the floor to get to certain actions. But most times just a theme. I like the theme
Gotcha.
because it organizes my brain.
Right, as opposed to just watching a million different things. Even though I'm sure there's days where you're like, all right, I saw something from this team, so I'm gonna go check
Absolutely,
out that team a little bit. But
absolutely.
what's kind of your process for then like retaining the information in terms of, you're watching so much film. I'm sure you have a million edits on Sports Code or whatever you guys use, which I'm sure it's Sports Code, but right, like you have all that stuff. How often are you revisiting themes? How often are you showing that film that you break down on your own, maybe sending it out to some of your players or some of your guys that hey, this could be really helpful for them? How much are you really using that film that you break down?
I use it a lot. I'm a huge note taker.
Okay.
So everything I have is either in binders, folders, all over the place, or
So you're
most
you're
times,
you're pen and paper. You're
yeah,
writing.
I'm pen and,
Okay. Okay.
pen
You're a
and
pen and
paper,
paper
pen
type
and
of
paper,
guy. I wasn't
pen
the
and paper,
digital, these,
pen and paper.
okay. Okay.
So I go pen and paper. Then once I get everything I need, the information, I go Word. Then I go Word into PDF. So I try to organize everything and try to revisit it at least once or twice a week.
Right.
But the player development aspect of it actually helps because I have to revisit it even more to be able to implement drills that are aligned with our systems.
And watching the film too, how much of that do you think has helped your teaching on the court? Like, you having the play, you could show it to the team right beforehand, or however you do it. Maybe you pull it up on your phone. Here's the
Hmm.
action that we're working on, DHO. This is the under, this is the footwork, and
Hmm.
then actually having an example for them to see right before you go on the floor.
I think it's very helpful. I think players need to see like those things because everybody has their own learning patterns. Some people learn by seeing, some people learn by hearing, some people learn by reading, right? So I think it's very valuable to have those teaching points on video. And most times for me, it's easier to send before the workout, so they
Yeah.
can already have an idea of what we're working on and the things we're
Got
looking
you.
for to get better
Got
day to
you.
day.
What are y'all, Gary? Give me a couple of favorite actions, favorite teams right now. You mentioned some EuroLeague stuff. Who are you watching now? And are you still, you said ATOs right now? That's kind of the
Hmm.
theme you've been on?
So I really like Asvel. They're in France. EuroLeague team, they did a great job of like Spain action and just like getting
Yep.
into it a million different ways.
I dove into the EuroLeague this past year, so that's literally all I see is Spain. Like
Okay,
whether they set
yeah,
the back screen or not, they
yeah.
flip out of it. Like it's incredible.
So that's been my biggest takeaway because I want to see just different ways of how to get into it. So maybe I can help carry some of those things over to our head coach with the Legends. But I just love the creativity of the EuroLeague game of how to get into that Spain action. Something that we did here in Winnipeg, what we call cut and slide.
Yeah.
Whereas it's a slot ball screen. It's
Yep.
a slot ball screen happening. And there's a player in the opposite slide and a player in the corner. And as the guard dribbles off the ball screen,
Right.
the corner is going to corner cut, and the opposite slide is going to slide down to the corner. So, and I'm loving that concept because it just allows you to take advantage of that heavy help.
The gap. Yep.
Yeah, in the
Yep.
gap.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's those two things right now are my two favorites, and what I'm getting like trying to read and try to get creative with.
Right. And I've seen some clinics too where it's right. It's either the cut and slide or they'll have the 45 cut and which one to use versus, what.
Hmm.
But that corner cut in the NBA has been huge, especially off the short roll, right? You just cut the corner
Hmm.
and every team seems like they ended up with a lob there.
Absolutely. It's
That
great to use, especially when you have the athletic wing or four in the corner that's a non-shooter. You just
right.
have them corner cutting all day and you have a
Right.
shooter sliding away. Like, it can get real deadly. It can be a very good
Right.
thing.
So when you're talking about an action like the cut and slide, now let's say you want to bring that, you want to teach that to the guys. Will you guys start as a team, maybe putting it in, 5-on-0, whatever the concept might be in practice, or does Coach Taylor or even in the G League, do they prefer you to kind of implement it in a player development workout first? So now the guys know and are familiar with that action. How do you kind of structure that when as a staff you're going to introduce something new?
The player development key is first. 'Cause I think so. We have the cut and slide action happening, right? If we just talk about it just as a team setting, we'll miss over the reads that needs to be made once the ball is caught, right? So if I'm the one that's sliding down to the corner, like I need to know how to read the closeout. Like, what's my reason? It's a shot right away. I'm driving baseline. Is there space? Or I need to work on the proper footwork to catch and rip back middle. So the player development introduction is important first. Then we'll
Got it.
introduce it as 3-on-0 with our team skill development. So we'll have the ball handler coming off the ball screen, making either the lob pass or the slide away pass. Then we'll play a 3-on-3. Then Coach Mike or the G League will introduce a 5-on-0, and we'll play out of it 5-on-5.
Got it. My one question on that, that concept, when the big is still rolling to the bucket, have you had where the cut is kind of getting in the way of the roll? And do you guys have like an order of priority for like, where is the guard looking first? Like, should they still be looking to hit the roll right away, even though they know the corner's cutting? Do you guys like, have you had that issue a little bit just on the timing of stuff?
Actually, we haven't,
Okay.
right? Because they're all working together, right? I
Yeah.
think you put it in and have them read the game together. Obviously, our first read is the roller. If we can get that early by creating that advantage early coming off the ball screen, but the next read is the cut and slide. If that defender is not in that gap, guard still turn the corner, put pressure on the rim. If you see his chest kick out, now we're playing that 2-on-1 on that weak side.
Love it. Yeah, I'm getting detailed here. I'm getting detailed here. Talk to me about pick and roll setups. As the ball handler before the screen comes, what are some of the major things that you're making sure your guys are doing to set up that screen to make sure that they're able to come off and really create an advantage?
Number one, so I'm a big guy that likes to teach read space. Like every ball screen might not need a setup, right?
Okay.
If that defender is giving me space and not pressuring me, and my big is already in position to set the screen, let's just go off of it. Now that defender's trailing, now we already got our advantage created. Right then, two, maintaining vision. Because a lot of guards, when they're pressured, they lose vision.
Right.
Right. So how can we help you maintain vision? And also by doing so, that also helped me create space. Because now I can read and see where space is and where my defender is. So those two things for me are the biggest things. Setup wise and footwork, I mean, you can get detailed as possible.
Yeah.
I like to use different stops. I like to be quick. Nothing, no more than like one or two moves, and let's get off the ball screen and let's get to that
Right.
advantage that we're trying to get to.
Right. And then the passing out of the ball screen too. Like, what's the pass you see most guards at the G League level and in the Canadian League like struggle with the most? Like, is the pocket pass as easy as it seems, or is that one that you find that guys still really struggle with versus maybe that hook pass? What kind of are the passes that you feel like you need to really rep out a ton for these guys?
For both teams, actually, it's been the pocket pass.
Okay. And people
And I
would think
think,
because you see it all the time, but it's really, you
mhm,
got to rep it, right? Like, it's like anything else.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's just a partnership of the ball handler and the screener. Like sometimes, like the big is too slow getting out of it. The guard has to
Right.
be more patient. And honestly, some guards aren't patient enough because they once they come off of it, the big isn't out the screen yet, so they just get down here and try to force a bucket. Right? So you just have to build a relationship between the screener and the ball handler to get out of the screen earlier. Then that open up the pocket pass and help the guard to see it. But I think most, like right now, with the players I've been working with, the skill is there to make the pass.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just like the timing and willingness to make the pass to the big.
Willingness. That's a big
Yeah,
one. Hey, talk on
absolutely.
that though. Touch on that for a second.
Absolutely.
Willingness. What do you mean by that?
I think just trust, right? It's all about trust. That's the biggest thing. Like trust your big. He or she's gonna make the right play. Like trust that they're gonna finish the play. Don't get discouraged as a point guard or a guard to stop making a pocket pass because maybe they dropped the first two. Like just keep going because later in the game, that's gonna open up more for you to get downhill and create better shots for the team. Right? So that's what I mean by willingness.
Yeah,
You
and
just
going
think
right
that
off that, how important is it then for the posts and guards to work together? I know I'm guilty of it. Like, all right, let's go guards on one end, bigs on the other end. Like, if you're not getting reps together when you're
hmm
working this stuff, whether it's handoff action, ball screen, any action, honestly,
hmm
right? It's great for me to set the screen, but you're not passing to me in a game, right? So,
Absolutely.
how much do you guys try to divide up like where there is time for just guards, but then there's also time for both to come together?
I think it's extremely important, right? I reference it as like a relationship. Like the more time you spend time with somebody, you get to know what they like, you get to know what they don't like. Y'all have a better chemistry and timing, right? So it's the same exact thing with player development. Players need to spend a lot of time together, especially when you introduce new concepts. Like you have a team full of new players, because I think it's important. Like just the understanding of like some bigs might like to toss the ball earlier to the guard. Some bigs might have want to stop playing the handoff, which will create confusion for the guard. So if they never work together on that aspect, that might lead to a lot of turnovers in a game or a lot of miscommunication. So I think the
Right.
earlier, the more they can spend time together, the better you'll be with execution and just being able to play together.
And you see a ton of this in terms of the G League, like guys getting sent up or called up, burned back
Hmm.
down. Like your roster's changing a ton, right? Can you touch
Hmm.
on that for maybe some people who aren't really familiar with how the G League works? And then how are you kind of managing all these different personalities that are coming back and forth, all the different skill sets? Like, how do you guys kind of set roles and expectations on a team that has so many changes throughout a season in terms of the G League?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you first. One thing we did with the Legends try to get good people. The Mavs do a good job of finding good people that value the right things that aren't like selfish players. Because I think that's the image of the G League. Like everybody just wants to get their own. But I think that's not true, right? Everybody wants to try to develop a team of team first people and help them with their goals and how to implement their skill set into like a pro team. Right. So for us, obviously you have your two ways and your exhibit tens which their priorities with the Mavs for us.
Can
So
you
we
go
have
into
two.
detail? So like explain that to me. Like what's a two-way, and then what's the exhibit 10? And I guess what's the relationship? So the Mavs are kind of controlling the G League roster as well, right? Like what's the dynamic between, again, I'm kind of familiar, but I don't know the
Yeah, for
detail. I'm
sure.
curious. Yeah.
So the Mavs would sign the two-way guys,
Okay.
two-way and exhibit 10 guys, which two-way they just added one, so it's three. Then you would have two or three exhibit 10 guys. So the two-way guys would spend time in the NBA. So I think it's like 52 games. I'm not really sure of the
Yeah,
rules
yeah,
right
yeah.
now for the two ways, but they'll spend time in the NBA.
So
And
they can go up and down
they
whenever.
go up and down. Yep.
Got it.
They go up and down throughout the year. In Exhibit 10, they can get called up by the team, but most of the time might be spent with the G League team.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. And then throughout the year, your staff is obviously communicating with the Mavs staff as well. Like how much of that is happening during the season, which is already so busy, but at the same time, you guys are making sure that, your concept's very similar to
Mhm.
what they're running. Like how does that kind of work in terms of offense and defense?
That's very important to have everything the same. So in the G League, everything you want to match everything with the NBA team, so the transition can be smoother for the two-way guys and the guys they send down for
Got it.
injury or things of that nature. So everything must align. Then with player development, with the two-way guys and exhibit 10 guys, the Mavs would set the development plan. Like what are some things that we want them to work on to help make our roster or even other teams' roster? Because when you're in the G League, you're auditioning for all 30 teams because anybody can come get you at any point, right? So
Got
how
it.
can we help this player further his career by doing these two or three things that's determined by the Mavs?
So you're in touch with the player development staff from the Mavs, and you're kind of just relaying down, and you're still able to form your own drills and stuff, but just the
Hmm.
concepts have to be obviously similar to what they're running.
Yep, absolutely correct. Yeah, so you want everything. So Kimba came down with us for a day last year when he first
Yeah.
got signed with the Mavs. He practiced with us for a day. So things like that happen. Where like if we're doing something different, then the NBA team will not go well, right? So you want
Right.
everything to be aligned so that transition can be smooth and everybody can be on the same page once they go up to the NBA.
So how much are you working on guys' strengths then, getting really really great at what they're already good at versus spending time on weaknesses in the G League, knowing that this guy could be gone in a week, gone in 2 weeks,
Mhm.
versus somebody that's going to be there the whole season and really needs to develop maybe weak areas. I feel like that could probably be challenging for you with just again so much uncertainty of what's going to happen. But how do you guys kind of handle strengths and weaknesses and where to prioritize?
Like that's the beauty of the G League because the G League values player development.
Right.
Like it's a development league, right? So all our time is invested in like their weaknesses, but also helping them identify their strengths. Because it's interesting especially with younger players. A lot of young players don't even know what they're really good at.
Wow.
If you ask a lot of young players, they'll say, "Yeah, I scored."
Yeah.
Okay, how do you
That's a good
score?
point. That's a good point.
And how
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
score? Do you score by getting to the rim? Like, okay, if you score by getting to the rim, okay, how can we improve your shooting to help you become an even better scorer? Like if we working with a 3-and-D guy, like how can we implement more and help him grow his game? Like most guys don't know like what's next. Like I'm a shooter. If you're a shooter, how can we get you a better attacking closeouts and finishing at the rim? So like that's most time like the thought process. Then once we identify those things, how can we implement and apply those things together and help them be successful in the team setting?
How much are you able to do like, contact 3-on-3, 1-on-1, two in the season when, you might have game coming up, but that's where they really need the decision making aspect. Is that kind of
Mhm.
where like how do you guys simulate real game situations for guys that maybe aren't playing as much in games, but then also knowing that you got to like do the load, have the load management side of things as well?
Yeah. So before leading up to like through training camp and before the season starts, you spend a lot of time doing those things. Then in season is determined by high minutes and low minute guys. Like
Got
high
it.
minute guys, when they come into the gym, it's more than likely their routine work, just getting a feel. Their 15 to 20 minutes of just routine work. Then low minute guys, you can push more. Like you can push more reps, more intensity, and they'll spend more time in the one-on-one, three-on-three setting because they just need the reps to stay sharp.
So will they have different sessions or different slot times to come in? Like they'll get a text, whatever the schedule is. They have a block that's maybe longer than the guys that played long. Like, how do you guys do that from a scheduling standpoint?
So from the schedule standpoint, we break up into groups. So everybody has like pretty much positional, essentially. And then if it's like a two-man group, say one guy didn't play as much or hasn't been playing as much, and the other guy has, they might just split ends. So because
Got
one
it.
guy will be playing one-on-one, three-on-three with the coaches, and the other guy will be on the other end just getting skill work, just keeping his feel, like maintaining
Right.
his work pretty much. So that's how we pretty much separate it. It's pretty simple and easy once the season gets going.
Yeah.
So
Nice. No, that's good. That's always the big question is like, especially at the college level too, like
mhm,
we always play Thursdays, Saturdays, and it's okay. But the guys that aren't playing more than 20 minutes should be doing something extra. But with classes and our limited hours
mhm,
and all that stuff, it's always like, what's the most efficient way to get kids that aren't playing as much more decisions so that when they are in the game, they're ready to go. And it's not like they haven't seen live play in a while.
mhm.
So that's always been a struggle.
Yeah, I think those pre-practice and post-practice sessions are very important for those type of things, especially once you're in season and you just recreating those situations that they'll see 3-on-3, one-on-one, kind of like anything that'll help them get that feel. Because it's nothing like improving your skill set through playing. It's different. It's a
Right,
totally different.
100%. What are
It's a
you what are
totally
you
different
doing?
feel.
Talk to me. I hope you have an answer for this because this is something I've asked almost everybody, and it's I've gotten mixed reviews or a couple ideas, but guys that are in a game to make shots, you got your shooter, but they're coming off the bench, and maybe they don't get in the game till the second quarter, and they get two shots and they don't make them, like that's it. So
Mhm,
how are you preparing them in practice for that role? There's just a struggle of the guy that that's got to go in and make these two
mhm,
shots, but they're cold. But in practice, they beat every drill. They shoot the shit out of it in every single drill because
mhm.
they get to warm up. They get 10 shots in a row, and now they're going 9 for 10. But in a game when they check in, they're just not ready. I don't know if you have a good answer to this, but that's
It's
the problem. I'm
funny.
looking for a good one for that.
No, it's funny. So I spent time with Tim Martin before I came to Canada
Yeah.
this
Okay.
year. He has a thing where every workout for every player, no matter if it's Tyrese Maxey or a guy that's going through pre-draft, I can't remember the name of which he called it, but every workout starts with threes. It's no form
Okay.
shots right off the stretch. Like as
I'm
soon as you
so
stretch,
guilty. I'm like, we got to warm
yeah,
up. We got to get tight. We got
no,
to go to the mid. It's
yeah.
okay.
As soon as you stretch, we're going straight behind the three-point line.
Okay.
And it's the most basic threes. It's nothing like complex, but it's the catch and shoot. It's the deep catch and shoot. It's the drifts. It's the lifts. It's transition shots. It's ball screen threes. So all the shots they'll get in that game, but it's right off the bench. It's no
Right.
warm up.
Right.
It's all mental. Then on top of that, Tim did a great job of like changing up the music, right? So just having
Okay.
players like listening to jazz one day, listening to upbeat music one day, listening to hip hop things they relate to, but just trying to find that mental test and battle to get yourself going. Because
Right.
just like in the game, things might not be going your way. Like the crowd is against you, but how can you lock in right off the bench and get yourself in that mindset? And that was one unique way that I took too with our team is soon as we walk in the gym, jump behind the 3-point line.
Right.
Like
So
it's
no ball handling first. None of the, yeah.
no ball
They're
handling
gonna
first, we
the
right
next
behind the
time
3-point line.
As soon as we get back to school, that's when they're gonna be looking at me like, "What the? Are you kidding me?"
Yeah,
Uh,
we jumping right behind the 3-point line. No warm-up shots. No
that's
time to get
good.
loose.
That's good. That's good. All right, jumping over to the team side of things now. Video coordinator role. Can you touch on what's expected of you in that role with games coming so quick? What are you kind of presenting to your head coach? What is maybe some stuff that doesn't get to the players, only gets to the staff? Kind of just take me through the life of a video coordinator in the G League.
It's fun. That's what I can.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
fun.
I like that. All
It's fun.
right.
I think it's a great learning opportunity, right? It's very. People say it's a grind. I mean, you just embrace it. Like at the same time, you're growing, you're learning. You learn how to operate under pressure, which is very
Right.
important. How to
Right.
maintain pressure, how to handle pressure without getting like too worked up.
Overwhelmed. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
just
good
trying to
point.
stay even keeled the entire time, which I'm guilty of it. My first month on the job, I was just like, what have I got myself into? But over
Talk to me
time,
though. How come? Like, what is usually the buildup? Is it the amount of work? Is it the do you have so little time to do it? Is it the presenting, not feeling sure of yourself? What kind of causes all that pressure from your perspective?
I think it's a little bit of like both. It's a little bit all of it. Like it's the first time video, you working with sports code for the first time.
Right.
Things have to get done in a timely manner, and just the pressure of wanting to do a good job. Like that's one thing that, especially if you're a hard worker in basketball as a player, you hold yourself to that standard. And like when you're learning pretty much like baby steps, like you putting so much pressure on yourself to do a good job. And I think you just have to manage that as well to understand like I'm learning too.
Right.
But I'm going through my process and I'm learning something new. So that was the biggest thing for me. My day to day, especially preparing for games, our head coach, he wanted a 15-minute edit before every game. So we played 52 games. So I did
And
52,
you're doing
50.
all of them. It's
Yeah, I'm
just
doing
you.
every single one of
Okay.
them. I'm doing every single, so every 15-minute edits, 52
Wow.
15-minute edits.
Yeah.
So the 15-minute edit consisted of the defensive coverages, ball screen, DHO, pin down, how they go our actions, transition defense, end of game defense. Then it also has offense, like their early offense, their half court execution, sideline OB, baseline OB, things of that nature. And I send that to the head coach and the scout coach for that game. And then also along with that, I would put together an analytical package. So Second Spectrum, I'm not sure if you all use it or not, but I go through Second Spectrum and go through the analytical report, and I find like the three areas that they've been struggling with, break down the report, and also give that to the coach along with 3 to 5 games.
Oh
And
wow.
that's every single game.
Right. And you
Uh,
guys, what's the typical G League game schedule right now? Like, is it a certain amount of games a week or is it pretty sporadic?
it's for me, it's sporadic
Yeah.
because you don't know what day it is. You just know you got a game coming up.
Right.
But so the seasons are split right now. So showcase from November to December. December 19th is when the showcase start. So from like November 2nd until December 4th, I mean December 18th, you would play 20 games. So
Okay.
there might be 2 games a week, 3 games a week, just based off the schedule. Then January until March, you play 32 games. So
Got it.
your months vary. So this year we had a heavy February where we had like 10 to 12 games. Then like January and March it wasn't as heavy because we had you spreading out 32 games.
So how important is it for you to get ahead and how do you kind of do that? Like, are you trying to work, 2 games out, like how realistic is it? I know it's probably easy when you first start because that's what I try to do. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna
Hmm.
work a couple games out and then the season gets going and I'm no
For
longer able
sure.
to.
For sure. No less than 3 games out.
Yeah.
For me, I won't go any higher than 5. Just the G League, the roster change.
Right, right.
So for say, let's say their two-way guy played in game 5, right? But they called him back up and he missed 4-3-2. Then the day before we play him, he's back in game 1.
Yeah.
So it's important to catch that game 5 to see the things they ran, how they played, what shots he's looking for, so things of that nature. So most times I go 3 to 5 games out.
Right, right. And now is your staff broken up do you guys go like offense, defense scout, or is it one assistant's entire scout? Like how are the staffs, maybe not even just your team? I don't know if you know the other staffs, but what's kind of the common theme? I know in the NBA, it's like one person's in charge of offense, one's defense, or does one person own the whole scout typically?
So for me, I've only got G League experience. I
Yeah.
haven't did the NBA yet, so I'm not
Yeah.
really sure
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, everything they've done, they doing it for their scouts.
Yeah.
I know for us, this past season with the Legends, our coach owned whoever scout it was, they owned it. So you did defense, our offensive coordinator obviously would meet with the head coach, but you more so focus on the defensive schemes and the personnel. Then the
Got
offensive
it.
coach will handle the offense.
Okay.
Then this year this summer in Winnipeg, I did offense, and our other coach did defense and the personnel.
Got it. So
Then
you
I
for
just
offense,
handled.
you were meeting every game for the offense. So you were still watching every team, even though it wasn't necessarily
Mhm.
your scout.
Absolutely,
Gotcha.
absolutely, absolutely. From my knowledge in the NBA, everybody has a job with every scout.
Right.
So
So it
even if
doesn't
you
feel like
watch,
one person's not contributing or not doing anything that
absolutely,
game, right?
absolutely, yeah. In the NBA,
I
I know with the Mavs, I know they have one guy watching like the point guards from the opposing team, one
okay.
guy watching how they guard ball screens, or it's all spread out that everybody has work to do.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I've heard both sides of it of like, if you rotate like that, like that's your baby, that's your
Hmm.
scout, like you've got everything, you're an expert on that team. Whereas, then to the same point though, like if everyone's helping out, then we've really got it covered. But I know it's the different ways of doing it, I guess, between the rotating versus offensive and defensive approach. And then I've heard too, like some people don't love the offensive and defense because now they're not feeling like
Hmm.
they're getting better on one side of the ball or they're always
Right,
sticking on that. I don't
right.
know what your thoughts are just from kind of all your experiences, but
Yeah, I think it's a challenge, right? You just learn new things every year, or you take hold to something new. If I'm strong suit, because I had a mentor named Melvin Hunt, he asked me what I'm comfortable with, and I said offense. He's like, okay, bet you're gonna do defense today.
yeah,
So it's just like you just
yeah,
take it on the chin, and you just learn something new. But I think as a coach, if you're a really good offensive coach, if you understand defense, you can be a really good offensive coach. And
right.
if you understand offense, you can be a really good defensive coach. Right? So I think both go hands in hand, and I think you should just own it, deep dive into whatever job you get.
How long are your film sessions with the team? So you're giving your head coach a 15-minute edit. Are you guys watching? I know every staff is different. Some coaches still love to watch a ton of film. I hear some teams now, even the women's side, like they don't even give their team scouts. It's all
Hmm.
video now. They don't even have physical paper. What's your guys' approach to scouting when it comes to presenting to the team?
So when we presented to the team with the legends, the scout coach will have his video, which will be filled with personnel, end of game, and like their early offense, their top 3 to 5 plays.
Three
And
to
the
five.
scout
Okay,
coach,
that's a good
yeah,
number. Good number. Okay,
the scout coach will present all of that information. Like that's there. The 15-minute edit is something that only the coaches see.
got it.
So it's separate. Then the scout coach will just use my 15-minute edit to just pull whatever he needs. So I'm
Okay.
pretty much helping him like with the scout and have another eye on the team with him and the head coach. Film sessions wise, I think that normally took 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay. That's
It's
not,
not
yeah.
too long. It's not too, you don't want to, the season is long. You might be off of back to back. And that film session is all you have on that team. So those might be a little bit longer, but most times only like 10 to 15 minutes.
So how much are you walking through on the floor? And did you guys have shoot arounds? Or I don't know how frequent you had actual practices in
Mhm.
comparison to I know the NBA, they like never practice, quote unquote. I don't know if that's actually true, but if they do more walkthroughs and stuff, but what did that kind of look like now? You've already watched the film. How are you prepping on the floor?
So the scout coach will pretty much take us through the same things we watched on film. Like
Got
how
it.
we gonna go out the actions now, how we gonna go out the personnel, and just getting another learning curve for the players to learn and actually do it now. So we just saw it. Now it's time to actually do it and execute
Yeah.
the personnel, making sure players are getting different reps at different positions based off our lineups.
That's huge, right? Like I feel like it happens all the time. Okay, that's my matchup, so I'm gonna just guard this one spot.
Right.
They get into a game and they were like, "Oh, I never guarded the cross screen in practice." Like, and
Yeah,
that is on the coaches though, right? Like we've got to be able to
absolutely.
make sure that they're all getting the reps that they need to get
Yeah.
and guarding different personnel, right?
Yeah, so that is very important. Then along with that, changing defenses. So maybe he's killing us now. So how our plan B is trap. So now we trap
Okay.
the ball screen. Now that means the rotations will be different.
So
So
you'll
that
work
means
on plan B. Like you guys will do
yeah,
that.
yeah. In Winnipeg, yeah, Winnipeg and the Legends we did just working on the plan B.
Mm-hmm.
Just so players can have an ideal and feel of the rotations, who need to cover. Because every big, especially based off their strengths, coverages might not be the same. So one big might be in the
Right.
drop, one big might be in the drop, which we might not have to pull in as much on the backside. One big might be like in a hard show, which tells the guard we might have to pull in even more. So those little details are very critical, especially in game prep and game planning.
Is that more defensive coverages based on your personnel or their personnel more so? Like, were you guys more focused? Okay, if you've got a slower big, he's going to be in the drop regardless of the offensive player because it's him,
Hmm.
it's our big versus, more mobile big is going to be maybe up to touch or whatever, a little bit more aggressive. How much are you guys changing that? And has that been tough for the players? Like, I hope we can do that with our team this year.
Hmm.
But then you always hear the other side of, oh, that's too much. They can't do that's too
Hmm.
much. So,
So with Winnipeg this summer, we actually changed one of our big coverages. He was up to touch most of the time. Then we pushed him back into the drop. So we got into a game where we started our drop. Our coach loved to make adjustments like going into the second quarter so we can get a theme and
okay.
rhythm how they're creating these advantages. Once they killed our drop, based off his limitations, now we might just change the personnel. So we need to be more aggressive. We might put our big in that can get up the floor more, that can guard the ball screen.
Right.
Then if they're killing our hard show now, luckily we was blessed with a big that could do both. He could
Yeah.
show and he could switch. So it didn't have to be a personnel change, it was just a coverage change. So
Got
instead of
you.
him showing now, we just be like, switch it, switch it. So I think first you check the personnel, then two, you look at the coverage change afterwards.
What have been the big things like after games and the box score from, I mean, maybe Winnipeg versus the Legends, like that your head coaches that you can think of right after the game? What are they immediately going to? And they might, I'm sure that they're different. So just seeing that from post game, you're meeting as a staff, and I don't know if you guys address the team or not after. I've heard some coaches don't go into the locker room at all. Some coaches do. But what are usually the big things on the box score that kind of jump out from your head coach's perspectives?
So in Winnipeg, we were a physical team. We had physical fives and fours, fours and fives. We had some athletic threes that could rebound. So for us in the locker rooms, it was rebounding.
Yeah.
How we punishing them offensive rebounding because it was physical. Some games we had 20, 22 offensive rebounds. So
Right.
what does our defense and offensive rebounding looks like? Then two, the amount of threes that we were taking. Because we, we
Taking. Okay.
we yeah we were a good 3-point shooting team, but we weren't a great 3-point shooting team. Then we also had our analytical guy that was with us. He did a great job of
Yeah.
tracking our paint touch threes. So those three areas were the key things we focused on in Winnipeg post game. Then with the Legends, again it was like turnovers because we had like really good guard play. Then
Yeah.
again the quality look of threes that we were getting again same thing and just
Touch
how we were
on touch on
finishing at the rim.
quality look of threes. So what and I guess maybe comparing it to the paint touch three like in Winnipeg, what was the big difference? Like what was considered a quality three versus one that wasn't?
In Winnipeg. So in
Either one.
Winnipeg,
Either one. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so Winnipeg and the Legends pretty much like paint touch. Like
Okay.
paint touch are early clock and is not really contested. Like those are really good threes. If we can get a really good three with 18 seconds on the shot clock off one pass ahead, take it. It's a high
Got it.
quality shot. If we can get a three off a paint touch kick out with 6 seconds on the shot clock, take it. Right. So for us, we just wanted it to at least be a paint touch or add to like a paint threat. So a paint threat breaks down if like somebody cuts, defense collapse, you skip it, high quality shot. So you just taking advantage and just playing off the paint pretty much for
Got
us.
it. And everybody talk to me about shot selection then and like green light. Like were you playing or your head coach is pretty much like if you're open, shoot the ball, or did you have to have a certain percent? Like I know you got to earn the green light at some programs and organizations. How did that kind of work? Like if there was a paint touch and it was a guy that was shooting, 28% from three, does he still have the same green light as somebody else? And I'm sure that was different maybe from Winnipeg to the Legends.
No, with Winnipeg, we actually had a player that was struggling from the three, and defenses weren't closing out, and he was
Right.
taking them. Like right for us, we didn't want to kill his confidence as a player, but we encouraged. Okay, let's get you cutting more. How can we? And he was 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah.
He was just struggling from the three. And he wasn't known for as a 3-point shooter. He was just struggling. So early on, we got him in the gym, helped him out, get reps, got reps, got reps, and he still wasn't making shots. So
Yeah.
for us as a coaching staff, instead of taking his confidence, we was like, how can we put him in six situations so he can be successful? So we just changed up, put him as a screener, put him in a dunker, and things of that nature, and just trying to use different ways to still find a way to bring value offensively.
Right. Where does the mid-range play a role, or does it not play any role in either of these teams?
With the legends,
I know
so
every coach has a different. I don't know who I was listening to something the other day. I think it was Vic Schaefer from Texas women's basketball, and he's like, everyone doesn't want you to take the mid range, but that's why you got to practice. Everyone wants you to take the mid range. That's why you got to practice the mid range, and we're gonna take it all day long. As long as you get to that elbow, you're shooting that ball every time. And then I hear someone else say, like Dusty May or something from Florida Atlantic,
mhm.
like, we kind of recommend that they don't take it. He's like, we're not gonna tell them not to, but
So with both teams, neither coaches really just went away like to say it was just like an awful shot.
yeah,
So we had a guy, Amari Hardy, Jaden Hardy's brother, which was our point guard, huge mid-range killer. He comes off a ball screen, he's just knocked down. He's
yeah,
shooting 50, he's shooting like 60% from the mid-range. We can't tell him not to take the
right,
mid-range shot. So we just allow him to do his thing. What we did was not tell him not to take it, just look for a better shot. So if it's late shot clock, we really can't control it because we have Jaden Hardy. He's talented enough to make that shot. He's created enough space, which that's a good look for us. We might not want it like the early shot clock, of course not. But the later the shot clock, the better the defense. So at that point, you have to take what the defense gives you.
right.
So and that was our approach with both teams that I coach with. It's like if it's there, take it.
Yeah.
But
And if
that's
you're
not
working
this.
with high level guys too, like maybe the better players on your team in player development stuff, are you throwing in a little bit of mid range here and there? Like, okay, it's the end of the clock. Like, we've got to be able to get a shot off, like you said. It's not the bulk of your workout, but are you still working on it a
Right.
little bit?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because it's such a touch thing as well. Just like floaters and mid range, it's three different shots. Mid range, floater, mid range, and threes are all three different shots. Right. So you have to get reps on it when teams present you that opportunity to make that shot. You just got to trust your work at that point to knock it down. I think it's like a 5 to 10 minute thing for me most days,
Yeah.
just to get players to see that range and just get that feel of it.
Love it. Love it. All right. I got the final four questions for you here. I did
Yeah, do
not
you
send
think
these to you, so you don't know about these yet. But
you're
all right,
good?
you got 45 minutes workout session. What's the ideal number of players in that group? And what's the concept or action that you love working on? So if you could kind of create your own workout here, who's in it, how many guys, and what's the focus of that day?
Oh, I
45
like it.
minutes.
I like it. Let's go three. Let's go three guards. Let's go three guards. We'll start off with finishing, playing through contact finishing. Play some finishing games as well. Just playing strong side help, reading that strong side help,
Yep.
finishing at the rim, and finishing versus your primary defender. Then we'll go ball screens, right?
Okay.
Just like them as like the primary ball handler. Then also like 3-on-0. So now we're working the ball screen, but we're also working on the spacing and movement out of the ball screen. Then we'll get some shots up, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like
that'll
it.
be our workout.
When you're working on the finishing stuff and you said versus your primary defender, what are your cues for teaching whether to go for the 1 foot finish with maybe like that wide, that half hook kind of angle, which I feel like every player needs to have? Like, in the women's game so much, you still see like our kids, everybody's guilty of, but like just
Hmm.
going up right over their forehead and it's getting blocked. Like they're not able
Hmm.
to use their body and kind of protect that ball and get that wide finish.
Hmm.
So what are your thoughts on that versus just getting to 2 feet and using that power finish? Do you have any cues or teaching points there?
For me, it's about reading space. I agree. Like if the defense rotates over and it's traffic, play off two.
Right.
If there's space and you can get that up quick enough, play off one. But I know at our level, players are athletic, so they're
Mm-hmm.
smart as well, so they can time the 2 foot jump.
Right. Okay.
Like and every shot blocker and player rotating over. aren't going to jump. So sometimes that 1 foot finish to beat that rotating defender is the perfect finish at that time. So I know at the NBA level, more coaches encourage the 1 foot finish just because of how athletic players are, and we try to just get the ball up on the glass as quick as possible. But if I want players to like play through physicality, finish through traffic, playoff two.
Got it. Good stuff. Good stuff. Are you a podcast or a book guy? What you prefer? You're on a road
Ooh,
trip. Is the first thing you're going to, you're putting the headphones in to listen to a podcast, or are you reading a book?
we're on podcast.
Okay.
We're on podcast. I'm on podcast.
Give me two recommendations. What do you listen to?
Slapping glass
Of
is
course, of course,
great.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the quick timeout.
Okay. I think I've
The
listened to a
quick
couple of
time I
those.
like the quick timeout because it's 20 to 30 minutes and it's like quick hitters. And it's just
Right.
like perfect. It's perfect for my brain and like learning. Like I can get through if I'm
Yeah.
on
The
a 3 hour
slapping
road
glass, you
trip.
gotta like rewind sometimes. And you're like, okay, what do you just,
Yeah,
okay, that was good.
yeah,
Let me rewind that again.
yeah. Like quick timeout, I can get like 3 to 4 episodes in like a 2 hour road trip because it's like 20, 30 minute episodes. So it's perfect. It's
Yeah.
perfect for my day.
All right, you mentioned Tyler Relph before, so maybe you already kind of answered this one, but what was your biggest takeaway in working with him? Obviously, such a well-known trainer, but I'm sure you got to know him at a way deeper level than just what everyone sees on the outside. So what was your biggest takeaway with working with Tyler?
Yeah, Tyler, working with Tyler was fun. Number one, his energy every single day. That's one thing he really helped me is about consistency. That's one thing that's not coaches aren't holding themselves accountable for every single day is bringing that same exact energy every single day for the players because the players need it. Two is just again like his command of the floor.
Hmm.
He just command every room he steps in, especially when it's time to step on a court and talk basketball. Three is his creativity. Like he's a creative dude, especially with drills. Like he can see one move, and he's built the entire workout within like 10 seconds in his head. He's like, boom, let's go, let's get it going. So those things were huge. But one thing I talked to Tyler about too is his basketball mind. People see like the training part, the ball handling part, and the dribbling, right? But like as a basketball mind, he actually sees the game as a coach. So I just like
Right,
from between me and him, like I was like, Tyler, like show the world that more. Like
right.
show the world that you can see the game as a coach and you're like you're smart, you're a really smart dude.
And
So
when you
those
say in terms of a coach, you mean by like the coverages and all the different
mhm,
explanations of not just, okay, here's the move that we're demoing, but this is when we're going to use it more so, right?
absolutely. And he does a good job of like the why, how, and when.
Yeah.
But like as a coach, when you watch the game, you're looking at, oh, that's a great ATO. Okay, great ball screen coverage. They're doing a really
Right.
good job of impacting the ball screen coverage. So like things of that nature, just like seeing the game as a coach.
Love it. Love it. All right. Aside from watching film, and maybe it's something within that though, what are like some habits or things that you consistently do to make sure you're like your day is off to a great start, allows you to stay locked in? Maybe it's a long season. I know you said you have a break, but maybe it's February when all those games are coming at you. And it's easy, like you said, to maybe kind of, I'm not feeling great today. Or I'm
Mhm.
not as motivated today. Anything like for some young coaches coming up that they can start kind of taking and making habits of daily stuff that they can do to just make sure that they're continuing to stay locked in, stay motivated throughout a long season.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, I started off with like early workouts before my day gets started.
Yeah.
Just that first mental challenge of the day is getting up to bed and going to work out. That's a challenge, right? So things of that nature, yoga, Pilates, I took up, fell in
Oh,
love with both, fell
all
in love
right.
with both.
I've never done Pilates, yoga.
Yeah,
No,
it's
okay.
different. It's different. It's a
Yeah.
different vibe. You just get around different energy, and it helps because it's morning. The ladies that I was in the class with are
Yeah.
positive, upbeat. Like it's a different energy. It helped
Yeah.
me get away from the game. Then like just reading, obviously, just reading different books that's not attached to basketball. And that was one thing one of my mentors, Lewis Wilson, taught me when I worked for him at University of Texas at Tyler. He was just always on me like, Tev, study something outside of basketball. Like find a hobby, or if it's like golf, book, tennis, something like that, find a hobby outside of basketball that'll help you get that 30 minutes of break. Like it's very important. Then lastly, just talking to mentors, just refreshing. If you're frustrated, like getting those emotions out of you and
Right.
let somebody with more experience like calm you down, give you a different perspective.